college romance, first true love, and a heartwarming love story between Vanessa and Mark that began with one unexpected kiss in a university cafe. Sometimes a single brave step can change your entire life forever. She was a quiet honor student focused on building a better future for herself and her hardworking mother. He was the popular football captain every girl on campus dreamed about. Their worlds were never supposed to collide. But one autumn afternoon, a single kiss changed everything, from a small campus cafe to romantic sunsets by the lake. From nervous smiles to a first heartfelt, "I love you." From the winter ball to a breathtaking marriage proposal on graduation day. This is a story about finding love when you least expect it. A story about courage. About a mother who sacrificed everything for her daughter. About a young man who saw beauty where others never looked. And about a young woman who dared to take the very first step. Because sometimes the distance between loneliness and happiness is only one moment of bravery. Get ready for a love story that will make you smile, cry, and believe in true love again.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
She kissed the most popular guy on campus, and everything changed. Autumn at Westbridge University was always special. The old maple trees lining the wide campus walkways blazed with shades of red and gold. Near the library, the air smelled of fresh coffee and wet leaves after the morning rain. Students hurried to class, laughed with friends, made plans for the future, fell in love, had their hearts broken, and fell in love again. This was where Vanessa studied. Hardly anyone noticed her. Not because she wasn't beautiful. Quite the opposite. Vanessa had large brown eyes, long chestnut hair, and a gentle smile. But she never tried to draw attention to herself. While other girls spent hours choosing dresses for campus parties, Vanessa bought textbooks. While some students dreamed of becoming popular on social media, she dreamed of graduating with honors. She wore simple jeans, hoodies, and old white sneakers. Her life was simple and difficult at the same time. When Vanessa was 8 years old, her parents divorced. Her father moved to another state. Her mother, Maria, stayed behind. For 10 years, she worked almost without a day off. Sometimes she worked 2 jobs at once. In the mornings, she worked as an administrator at a medical clinic. In the evenings, she cleaned office buildings. Vanessa often woke up in the middle of the night and saw the light on in the kitchen. Maria would be sitting at the table with a calculator, a pile of bills, and a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. She always smiled at her daughter, but Vanessa could see the exhaustion in her eyes. That was why she made herself a promise. "I will study so hard that one day Mom will never have to worry about money again." And she kept that promise. Every morning, she arrived at the university before almost everyone else. She spent hours in the library. She took detailed notes. She filled notebooks with page after page of careful handwriting. And she earned top grades on every exam. Then there was Mark. Everyone knew him. Absolutely everyone. Handsome, tall, athletic, the captain of the university football team. Whenever he stepped onto the field, the stadium erupted with cheers. Whenever he walked across campus, girls turned to watch him. Some even signed up for classes they didn't need just because he was taking them. Mark was popular, but strangely kind. He never acted like a celebrity. He always greeted professors respectfully. He helped freshmen find their classrooms. Sometimes he even carried heavy boxes for university staff members. That was why almost everyone liked him. Almost. Because Vanessa barely thought about him at all. At least she tried not to. They had crossed paths a few times in class. Once, Mark failed an important economics test. Vanessa lent him her notes and spent several evenings helping him understand the difficult material. She assumed they would never really talk again afterward. But Mark started greeting her every time he saw her. Sometimes he sat next to her during lectures. Sometimes he asked for advice. Sometimes he simply smiled. And somehow that smile stayed in her mind for the rest of the day. The day everything changed was a Thursday. A light autumn rain tapped against the windows. The student cafe was crowded. Some students were working on laptops. Others were arguing about football. Some were preparing for upcoming exams. Vanessa sat in her favorite corner by the window. A thick book lay open in front of her. Her notebook was filled with notes and highlighted passages. And beside it sat a green apple, which she slowly ate while turning the pages. She hadn't even noticed that almost the entire football team was sitting at a large table in the center of the cafe. The guys were laughing loudly, talking, joking with one another. Then suddenly one of them said, "Mark, you won't do it." "Oh, yes I will," Mark replied. "No, you won't. Wanna bet?" The table exploded with laughter. Several of the players immediately pulled out their phones. Then Mark stood up. Vanessa looked up from her book and realized he was walking directly toward her. For some reason, her heart skipped a beat. "Hey, Vanessa." "Hi." Mark smiled. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. What is it?" The students at the nearby tables were already giggling. Mark looked directly into her eyes, then unexpectedly said, "Vanessa, please kiss my ear." The entire cafe burst into laughter. Someone nearly fell off a chair. Someone else started recording with their phone. Vanessa felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to disappear. Every single person in the cafe was looking at her. Mark stood beside her, waiting. He probably thought she would simply say no, walk away, get offended. But something strange happened. Even years later, Vanessa could never fully explain why. Maybe she was tired of being invisible. Maybe she simply listened to her heart. Or maybe she had already been in love with him for a long time. She had just been too afraid to admit it to herself. Vanessa slowly stood up. She took one step toward Mark. The cafe fell silent. So silent that the rain outside could be heard against the windows. Then she gently took his hand, rose onto her tiptoes, and instead of kissing his ear, she kissed him directly on the lips. For a few seconds, the entire world seemed to stop. The cafe was completely silent. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. Even the phones slowly lowered. Everyone was shocked. Mark stared at Vanessa as if he had forgotten how to breathe, and she smiled, a little embarrassed, a little nervous, and completely sincere. Several seconds passed. Then one of the football players quietly whispered, "Wow!" Then another, and suddenly the entire cafe erupted into applause. But Mark wasn't listening anymore. He was only looking at Vanessa, and for the first time in years, he realized that all the girls who had chased after him had never truly meant anything to him. Because all along, he had been searching for her. The quiet girl in jeans and a hoodie. The girl who always sat in the corner with a book. The girl who had just changed his life with a single kiss. For the rest of that day, nobody in Westbridge University talked about anything else. The video spread across campus faster than any football highlight. Students replayed it during lunch. Girls watched it in their dorm rooms. Even some professors had heard about it by the next morning. The quiet honor student had kissed the most popular guy on campus. And nobody could believe it, least of all Vanessa. The moment she returned to her dorm room that evening, she buried her face in her pillow and groaned. "What did I do?" Her roommate Emma nearly fell off her bed laughing. "You kissed Mark Reynolds in front of half the university. That's what you did." Vanessa covered her face. "I think I'm going to die." "No," Emma said. "You're going on the greatest date of your life." Vanessa wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, Mark couldn't stop smiling. His teammates noticed immediately. During football practice, he missed easy passes, forgot plays, even got yelled at by his coach twice. His best friend Jake finally walked over and slapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Okay, what's wrong with you?" Mark grinned. "Nothing." Jake stared. "You look like someone who just won the lottery." Mark looked toward the distant library building. Maybe he had. 3 days later, Vanessa was sitting in the library when her phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Her heart instantly started racing. "Would you let me take you to dinner Friday night?" She stared at the screen. "Read it 3 times, then 5, then 10. She typed a response, deleted it, typed again, deleted it. Finally she wrote, "I'd like that." The reply came almost immediately. "Good, because I was nervous." Vanessa laughed quietly. The famous football captain nervous? For some reason, that made her smile all afternoon. Friday evening arrived. Vanessa spent nearly an hour deciding what to wear, which was funny because she owned almost nothing fancy. After trying on half her closet, she chose a simple dark blue dress she had worn only once. Her mother had bought it 2 years earlier for a scholarship ceremony. When Maria saw her before leaving the dorm, her eyes widened. "You look beautiful." Vanessa blushed. "Mom." Maria smiled softly. "You know, sweetheart, sometimes life surprises us." Then she hugged her daughter and whispered, "Don't spend the whole night talking about homework." Mark arrived exactly on time. Not 1 minute early. Not 1 minute late. When Vanessa opened the dorm entrance door, he forgot what he was about to say. For several seconds, he simply stared. The evening sunlight painted her hair gold. Her eyes sparkled. She looked nervous and absolutely beautiful. "Wow," he finally said. Vanessa laughed. "What? You?" Her cheeks immediately turned pink. And somehow that made her even prettier. Instead of taking her somewhere expensive, Mark surprised her. He drove them 40 minutes outside the city, to a small lake hidden among rolling hills and pine trees. The sun was setting. The water reflected shades of orange and pink. Tiny waves touched the shore. Birds glided above the surface. Everything felt peaceful. They sat on a wooden dock, shared sandwiches from a local deli, talked, really talked, not about football, not about grades, about everything. Vanessa told him about her mother, about growing up watching Maria work herself to exhaustion, about wanting to build a better future. Mark listened carefully, not interrupting, not checking his phone, just listening. Then he told her something few people knew. His father had left when he was 12. His mother had raised him alone. Football wasn't just a game. It was his scholarship, his opportunity, his way out. For the first time, Vanessa realized that beneath the popularity and confidence was someone who understood struggle just as deeply as she did. The stars appeared one by one above them, and neither wanted the night to end. The next few months became the happiest of their lives. Mark started meeting Vanessa outside her classes, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with hot chocolate, sometimes with nothing more than a smile. He left handwritten notes inside her textbooks. "Good luck on your exam. You've got this. Don't forget to eat lunch." Vanessa kept every single one, hidden inside a small box under her bed. Meanwhile, Mark's teammates began calling her Captain's Girl. Every time she attended a football game, they cheered when she arrived. And every single game before kickoff, Mark looked toward the stands until he found her. Only then did he smile. Not everyone was happy, especially the girls who had spent years dreaming about Mark. Some whispered behind Vanessa's back. Some rolled their eyes whenever she walked by. One girl named Ashley was particularly cruel. Ashley was beautiful, popular, and had been trying to get Mark's attention for years. One afternoon, she cornered Vanessa outside a classroom. "I still don't understand." Vanessa looked confused. "Understand what?" Ashley crossed her arms. "Why he picked you." Vanessa felt the sting immediately. Ashley continued, "You're not exactly." She looked Vanessa up and down. "His type." The words hurt, far more than Vanessa wanted to admit. That evening she cried quietly in her dorm room. Not because she believed Ashley, but because old insecurities never disappear completely. Mark noticed something was wrong the next day. He always noticed. After class, he led her to a quiet bench beneath a large oak tree. "What happened?" Vanessa tried to deny it, failed. Eventually, she told him everything. Mark listened, then gently took her hand. "Look at me." She did. "Do you know why I like you?" Vanessa shook her head. "Because you're the kindest person I've ever met." He squeezed her hand. "You never cared about popularity. You never tried to impress anyone. You work harder than anybody I know." Then he smiled. And because you're beautiful. Vanessa felt tears fill her eyes. But mostly because you're Vanessa. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Then she wrapped her arms around him and held on tightly. Winter arrived. Snow covered the campus. Christmas lights decorated the trees. Students prepared for final exams. And Westbridge University announced its annual winter ball, the biggest event of the year. Every student dreamed of attending. When Mark asked Vanessa to go with him, she almost said no. The ticket was expensive. The dress would cost money. Money her family didn't have. But somehow Maria found a way. A week later, a package arrived. Inside was a stunning silver dress. Vanessa immediately called her mother. "Mom, this must have cost a fortune." Maria smiled through the phone. "It was worth every penny." "Why?" "Because you've spent your whole life sacrificing for everyone else." Her mother's voice softened. "This night is yours." The winter ball felt magical. Crystal lights sparkled from the ceiling. Music filled the ballroom. Snow drifted outside enormous windows. When Mark saw Vanessa enter, he completely forgot the conversation he was having. She looked breathtaking, as if she had stepped out of a dream. Later that evening, during a slow dance, he wrapped his arms around her. The world around them disappeared. The music faded. The crowd vanished. Only the two of them remained. Vanessa rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling home. And for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to imagine something beyond survival, beyond exams, beyond bills, beyond hardship, a future with Mark. Neither of them knew what challenges awaited. Neither of them knew how many tears, victories, disappointments, and unforgettable moments the coming university years would bring. But as snow fell softly outside the ballroom windows, one thing became clear. This was no longer a campus crush, no longer a beautiful coincidence. This was their first true love, and it was only the beginning. Time passed faster than either of them wanted. It felt like only yesterday Vanessa had been sitting in the corner of the student cafe with an apple in one hand and a book in the other. It felt like only yesterday Mark had been standing in front of her while the football team laughed and cheered. It felt like only yesterday the entire university had fallen silent after that unexpected kiss. And now they were seniors, their final year of college. A new chapter of life was waiting ahead. New cities, new opportunities, new challenges. But throughout all those years, one thing had never changed. They still loved spending time together. They still held hands while walking across campus. They still looked at each other as if nobody else in the world existed. And every single time Mark saw Vanessa, his heart still beat a little faster, just like it had that day in the cafe. One spring evening, Mark was finally going to meet Vanessa's mother. He was more nervous than he had ever been before a championship football game. Vanessa laughed the entire drive. "You're not going to a job interview. It feels exactly like a job interview. My mom is going to love you. What if she doesn't? Then I'm still not letting you go." They both laughed, but Mark was still nervous, very nervous. When they pulled into the driveway of Maria's small house, the sun was already beginning to set. The house was modest, a small front garden, an old wooden porch, flowers growing in colorful pots, and a white porch swing beside the front window. This was where Vanessa had grown up. This was where she had lived through all the difficult years of her life. Maria opened the door almost immediately, and the first thing Mark saw was a warm, genuine smile. "So this is finally the young man who has made my daughter smile for the last 4 years." Vanessa immediately blushed. "Mom!" Maria only laughed. During dinner they talked for hours, about college, about childhood memories, about football, about classes, about future plans. Mark quickly noticed that Maria and Vanessa were incredibly alike. The same eyes, the same kindness, the same quiet strength. Later that evening, Vanessa went into the kitchen to help with the dishes. For the first time, Maria and Mark were left alone. For a few moments, Maria remained silent. Then she looked directly into his eyes. "There's something I want to tell you." Mark immediately straightened in his chair. "I'm listening." Maria smiled softly. "When Vanessa's father left us, she stopped trusting people for a very long time." Her eyes lowered toward her hands. "I saw her cry at night. I saw her work harder than everyone around her. I saw her give up so many things because she thought she had to." Maria glanced toward a framed photograph of Vanessa sitting on a nearby shelf. "And then you came into her life." Mark felt a lump form in his throat. "And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter truly happy." Tears shimmered in Maria's eyes. "Thank you for giving her that." At that moment, Mark realized something. He loved Vanessa far more deeply than he had ever understood. Another year passed. Graduation finally arrived. The campus was covered with banners and decorations. Students posed for photographs everywhere. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some were saying goodbye to lifelong friends. The air carried that bittersweet feeling that comes at the end of an important chapter. Vanessa graduated with honors, just as she had promised herself years earlier. Maria sat among the families and guests, and cried openly with pride, not even trying to hide her tears. That evening, after the graduation ceremony ended, Mark asked Vanessa to take a walk with him. They drove to the lake, the same lake, the place where they had shared their first real date. The sun was slowly sinking below the horizon. Golden light danced across the water. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Everything was quiet, beautifully quiet, as if the entire world had paused. Mark stopped beside the old wooden dock, the same dock where they had once sat with simple sandwiches and talked about their dreams. Vanessa smiled. "I remember this day." "So do I." Mark took a deep breath. His heart was pounding. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Vanessa froze. Tears immediately filled her eyes before he had even spoken. Mark lowered himself onto one knee. "Vanessa," his voice trembled. "You changed my life the day you stood up in that cafe." Tears were already running down her cheeks. "You taught me how to see real beauty. You taught me how to love. You taught me how to become a better man." He opened the box. A diamond ring sparkled in the golden sunset. "I want to wake up beside you for the rest of my life. I want to share every day with you. Every joy, every victory, every challenge." Mark smiled through his nerves. "Vanessa, will you marry me?" She was crying, laughing, crying again, and without even a second of hesitation, she threw her arms around him. "Yes," then louder, "Yes," and again, "Yes." Mark lifted her into his arms. They laughed, they cried, they held each other tightly, and above the lake, the sun slowly disappeared below the horizon, just as beautifully as it had on the day of their first date. Sometimes life changes because of a single step. One look, one word, one kiss. That day in the cafe, Vanessa could have said no. She could have looked away. She could have stayed seated and returned to her book. And nothing would have happened. There would have been no first date, no winter ball, no late-night conversations until sunrise, no meeting Maria, no proposal beside the lake, and perhaps no great love story at all. People often believe that love simply arrives on its own, that one day fate will do all the work for them. But sometimes love begins with a small act of courage, with one step forward, with one risk, with one moment of saying, "What if?" The first kiss is not simply the touching of lips. It is the moment when two lives begin moving in the same direction. The first step is not simply movement. It is victory over fear. Because if we never take that step, if we remain silent, if we are afraid, if we hide our feelings deep inside our hearts, then love often remains only a beautiful thought, only a dream, only a story that never becomes reality. But Vanessa took her step, and Mark took his. That is why, on an ordinary autumn afternoon in a university cafe, a beautiful story was born. Not a story about a popular football captain, and not a story about a quiet honor student, but a story about two people who dared to listen to their hearts. And because they did, they found the love of a lifetime. Sometimes the greatest love stories are not born from perfect timing. They are born from courage, from the decision to stop hiding, from the willingness to risk rejection for the chance to be truly happy. Many people spend years wondering, what if I had spoken to them? What if I had confessed my feelings? What if I had taken that chance? And those questions often remain unanswered forever, because fear is powerful. Fear tells us to stay silent. Fear tells us to stay where it is safe. Fear tells us to protect our hearts. But love asks something different. Love asks us to be brave, to trust, to take one step into the unknown. No one knows what would have happened if Vanessa had remained seated that day. No one knows what would have happened if Mark had never walked across that café. But we do know what happened because they did. A single moment became a first conversation. A first conversation became a first date. A first date became years of memories. Years of memories became a proposal. And a proposal became the beginning of a lifetime together. Sometimes the distance between loneliness and happiness is only one brave step. One kiss, one chance, one decision to follow your heart. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about love. Not that it is perfect, but that it begins when two people choose courage over fear. And because of that choice, an ordinary day can become the day that changes everything forever.